Hello everyone, mathchick here. In this video, I'm going to teach you some basics about algebra. This video is just the first of 4 parts in this Algebra 101 series. I'm going to teach you now how to add and subtract like terms, properties of exponents, and multiplying and dividing monomials. Let's start with simplifying the expression 2x plus 6y plus 7x. Notice there are 3 terms: 2x, 6y, 7x. These terms together is called a trinomial. So this whole thing is called a trinomial. If we only had a single term, such as 2x, it would be called a monomial. If we had 2 terms together, such as 3x plus 5, this would be called a binomial. And then, of course, 3 terms, like this one, are called trinomials. So, how can we solve this equation? First, we start by combining like terms. Okay. In this case, we are adding 2x plus 7x. We only add the 2 and 7. This equals to 9. And then, since we have this x here, we just tack on an x to the back of the 9, which gives us 9x. Now, do we have any more like terms to add? We got that 7x down, we got the 2x, just leaving us with that 6y. Well, that's our only term right now that we haven't dealt with. So, since there's no like terms, we just add 6y to 9x, giving us 9x plus 6y as our answer. Now let's talk about adding 2 trinomials. So let's say we have 5x squared plus 4x plus 6 plus 6x squared plus 2x minus 5. Feel free to pause this video to try this problem out on your own. Okay, so what is the sum of these 2 trinomials? Well, let's begin by adding like terms. So what are the like terms in this equation? Well, we have 5x squared and 4x are not like terms because we have an x squared here and this one is just an x. So those aren't going to be like terms because they're not the exact same form. However, you can add 5x squared and 6x squared. They have the same x squared and coefficient. So those 2 are going to be like terms. So now let's add them. So 5x squared plus 6x squared is 11x squared. So now let's look for other like terms. We have 4x and 2x, which are like terms. So 4 plus 2 is 6. Tack on that x, so it's going to be 6x. The last like terms to add would be 6 and negative 5. So we have 6 plus a negative 5, or if you want to think about it this way, 6 minus 5 is going to be equal to 1. So the answer is going to be 11x squared plus 6x plus 1. Now, what about subtracting two trinomials? So let's say we have 7x squared plus 5x minus 3 subtracted by 6x squared plus 3x minus 2. Feel free to pause this video as you work through it. So let's begin by distributing the negative signs to everything on the right side of the negative sign. Since we do not have a negative sign in front of the left side of the parenthesis, we just drop the parentheses and rewrite this whole segment. So let's start by doing that. So 7x squared plus 5x minus 3. Well, since we have this negative sign right here, or subtraction sign, we have to distribute this sign by all the terms within the parentheses. We distribute this negative sign to all the terms in the parentheses. So we have a negative times a positive 6. A negative times a positive is going to be negative, so it's negative 6x squared. A negative times a positive again, so that's going to be negative 3x. This last term we have negative times a negative. In this case, a negative times a negative is always going to be positive. So in that case, it's going to be positive 12. Alright, so now we can start by rewriting our like terms to where they're near to each other. So we have 7x squared minus 6x squared. So we have both of those. Our next like terms are positive 5x minus 3x. So positive 5x minus 3x. Okay, we've gotten those. Okay, our next ones are negative 3 plus 12. So we have negative 3 plus 12. So make sure with these that if you do end up rewriting it, make sure you take signs that are in front of the numbers. So negative 6x squared, I rewrote it as negative 6x squared. Just make sure that you pay attention to your signs. Alright, so we have 7x squared minus 6x squared is going to be 1x squared. So 1x squared, you can write it as just x squared. These terms both mean the same thing. So I am going to, just for technical purposes, for what I'm doing here, I'm going to keep it as 1x squared. Okay, our next terms are going to be plus 5x minus 3x. So 5 minus 3 is a positive 2x. Okay. And then our last terms to combine are negative 3 plus 12. So negative 3 plus 12 is going to be positive 9. You can either read negative 3 plus 12 like that, or if you want it to be easier, since 12 is positive, you can read it as 12 minus 3. It's the exact same thing. Okay, so this is going to be our answer for this equation. 1x squared plus 2x plus 9. Now, at this point in the video, we are going to multiply monomials. So, what is x to the 5th power times x to the 6th? What is the answer? How can we calculate this? When you multiply one monomial by another, let's say with a common base, both of these are going to be the same. Whatever's in this area and whatever's in this area that the exponents are attached to. So if you have a common base, in this case, both our bases are going to be x. What do you need to do to figure out this problem? What you need to do is to add the exponents of the two monomials. So 5 plus 6 is what you're going to do. So we have x, 5 plus 6. Therefore, the answer to this problem is x to the 11th power. Another way you could think about this is you have 5 times 5 times 5 times 5 times 5. And then you times that by x times x times x times x times x. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times x. So it means that we are multiplying 5 x variables together times 6 variables, x variables together to get to 11 x's, or x to the 11th power. So for the sake of learning, let's do another practice problem. Let's say we have x to the 4th power times x to the 9th power. How do we get the answer to this problem? Do you remember? Pause this video and try to do this on your own, and then come back and check your answer. All we have to do on this problem is we have to add 4 plus 9. When we add 4 plus 9, we get x to the 13th power. So our answer is going to be x to the 13th power. Now we are going to divide monomials. So let's say we have x to the 8th power divided by x to the 5th power. What should we do here? How do we go about getting the answer to this problem? Well, recall that when we multiplied two variables together, we added the exponent. So when we multiplied two said variables, we just added the exponents. Well, when dividing two variables together, we will subtract the exponent. So in this problem, we have x 8 minus 5. So 8 minus 5 is going to be 3. So we have x to the 3rd power, or x cubed. And therefore, x cubed is going to be our answer for this problem. Now let's try another example. So let me put the other example up here, and then I would pause this video to try and work it out on your own before continuing. So the next example is x to the 6th power divided by x squared. So what do we do here? We're going to subtract x minus 5. So we have x to the 6 minus 2 power. So 6 minus 2 is 4. So we are left with x to the 4th power for our answer. Okay, so to visualize it, imagine if we expanded x to the 6th power. So, right here for this problem. So we have x times x times x times x times x times x. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Then we divide all that by just x times x, or x squared. Now we could cancel two of the x variables on top and on bottom of the fraction. So we are left with, so these two cancel out, these two cancel out, which we are left with 4x variables, which is equal to x to the 4th power, which is what we got over here. So that's why this works, because if you subtract 6 by 2, you get 4. Now, what if the exponent in the denominator of the fraction is bigger than the exponent in the numerator of the fraction? What should we do in this case? So let's say we have x to the 6th power over x to the 8th power. What do we do in this instance? Well, we still subtract the 6 minus 8, but we have to do just that. We have to write it as 6 minus 8. We always have to write it from the one on top minus the one on bottom. So 6 minus 8 is going to be -2, so we're left with x to the -2 power. Well, this power is negative, so what does that mean? Do we have a negative exponent? In the algebraic practice, it's better to have positive exponents rather than negative ones. So we have to figure out a way for this negative to become a positive. So in order to do that, we have to take the x variable and move it to the bottom of the fraction. So this is technically x to the -2 over 1. We have to move x to the -2 to the bottom. So therefore, our answer is going to be 1 over x squared. When that -2 comes down, that exponent becomes a positive. So therefore, we have 1 over x squared, which is a positive exponent. So 1 over x squared is going to be our answer for this problem. Let's see why this is the case by expanding the original problem. So we have x times x times x times x times x. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times x. So we have 6 x's up here. And then we have to put 8 on the bottom. X, 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 x. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we can cancel out 6 x's on the top and bottom of the fraction. So let's 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we cancel out 6 on the bottom. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So all we are left with is all those cancel out, which makes this 1. Then we have 2 x's left, making this x squared. So our final answer is going to be 1 over x squared, which is what we got. So anytime we have a negative exponent, you can move it to the other side of the fraction, making it positive. So if we had x to the -3 over 1. We can just move this x to negative 3 to the bottom of the fraction, or to the denominator, and this becomes 1 over x cubed, making 1 over x cubed our final answer. Likewise, if we had 1 over x to the negative 4th, we can move the x to the negative 4th to the top part of the fraction, giving us x to the 4th over 1, or x to the 4th. Both of these terms mean the same thing, so you can write, this is the more proper term, but you could write it like that if you needed to. So let's go ahead and work on these two problems for more practice. So the first problem is going to be x to the 7th power over x to the 10th. The next problem is going to be y to the negative 6th over 1. So go ahead and pause this video and try to work these problems out on your own. So let's start with the first question. What should we do here? Well, we have 7 and 10. Okay, so we have x to the 7th power minus the 10th power. We just subtract those exponents. Well, 7 minus 10 is going to be negative 3. So we have x to the negative 3. Now we need to get rid of any of the negative exponents. So this is technically going to be x to the negative 3 over 1. So we're going to move this negative exponent down to the bottom, which will give us 1 over x cubed, which is our final answer. Let's go on to the next question. So we have y to the negative 6 over 1. We have this type of form already, but we still have to get rid of this negative 6. So we just move the y variable along with the negative 6 down to the bottom, making it 1 over y to the positive 6. So 1 over y to the positive 6 power is going to be our answer. That's it for these problems. Now let's focus our attention to multiplying monomials. Let's say we have 4x squared multiplied by 6x to the 8th. How can we solve this problem? The first thing we need to do is multiply the coefficients. So these are the coefficients, the numbers that are in front of whatever variable you have here. So in this case, it's going to be 4 times 6, which gives you 24. Next, we need to multiply the variables x squared times x8. So x squared times x to the 8th. Remember from the previous problem, what we do when we multiply? We have to add 2 plus 8. So that's going to give us x to the positive 10th power. Therefore, our total answer to this problem is going to be 24 x to the 10th power. Let's try another example, just for the sake of learning. 7x to the 6th times 9x to the 5th. Go ahead and try this problem on your own by pausing this video to work it out. Okay, so in this case, all you need to do is multiply the coefficients 7 and 9. So 7 times 9 is going to be 63. Then we multiply the x variables by adding the exponent 6 plus 5. So x to the 6th times x to the 5th. 6 plus 5 is going to be x to the 11th power. So our final answer then is going to be 63, which was our coefficient, x to the 11th power. Now let's talk about dividing monomials. Let's say we have 8x to the 7th, y to the negative 5th, z squared, all over 16x to the 9th power, y to the negative 2, z to the 4th. Sometimes you will see these types of problems on algebra tests and exams. This is definitely worth covering in this video for those of you who take such tests. Go ahead and pause this video to try this one on your own. So there's many elements to this problem. We will start by trying to divide these two numbers or simplifying. Since the 8 is less than the 16, we're going to have to simplify these two coefficients. So what is 8 divided by 16? Since 16 is larger than 8, all we could do is simplify these two numbers. So how do we reduce this fraction? So we have 8 over 16. So we can think of it this way. We can have 8 times 1 over 8 times 2, which is going to be 16. These 8's cancel out, giving us half left. So I'm going to keep the 1 on the top and the 2 on the bottom. So then let's go ahead and just write it out like that for the start of our final answer. We can divide x to the 7th over x to the 9th by subtracting 7 minus 9, which leaves you with negative 2. So x to the negative 2. Next, we have to do y to the negative 5th over y to the negative 2, which is just going to be negative 5 minus a negative 2. Well, a negative times a negative equals a positive, so these cancel out to a positive. So now we're left with negative 5 plus 2, which is going to be negative 3. So we have y to the negative 3. Now for the last variable, z squared is divided by z to the 4th. We just do 2 minus 4, which gives us negative 2. So we have z to the negative 2. Now, you need to identify the negative exponents. In this case, x to the negative 2, y to the negative 3, and z to the negative 2 are all negative exponents, and they are in the top of the fraction. So they need to be moved to the bottom of the fraction. So we move all of those down to the bottom. So we have 1 on top, 2 on the bottom, x squared, y to the 3rd, z squared, which gives you 1 over 2x squared, y cubed, z squared as your final answer. If you have any comments, questions, or need some extra help, please feel free to comment down below this video and I can get back to you in a timely manner. If you like this video and want further content, please feel free to subscribe to my channel. And until next time, happy calculating!